Live from Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. Federal government and ASUU seal historic deal to end decades of disruption in Nigeria's university education. Nigeria hires U.S. lobbying firm a $9 million deal to explain its actions on Christian genocides to Washington. Uganda faces mounting calls to end internet blackout as Amnesty International alleges massive repression ahead elections. And in business, World Bank projects Nigeria's economy to expand 4.4% in 2026 to 2027 on reform gains.
And in sport, it's kickoff in Rabat as Nigeria's Super Eagles battle Morocco's Atlas Lions in the second semi-final of the Africa Cup of Nations. Details later.
Welcome. Tonight begins now. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with the historic agreement. Today, the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities have unveiled the long-awaited 2025 agreement with major focus on lecturers' welfare, university governance and funding. The event, which took place in Abuja, had in attendance the Minister of Education, the co-chairman of negotiating committee with ASUU and the president of ASUU himself. News Central's correspondent Blessing Aigbe compiled this report.
Negotiations. The federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities have finally put pen to paper, unveiling the 2025 landmark agreements aimed at resetting Nigeria's public university system.
The agreement provides for the review of the remuneration package of academic staff in federal tertiary institutions as approved by the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission. And this agreement, we're making promise to you today, this agreement will be effective from January 1st, and was effective from January 1st, 2026.
This agreement represents the culmination of sustained dialogue between the federal government of Nigeria, FGN, and the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, and reaffirms our collective commitment to the stability, quality, and global competitiveness of Nigeria's public university system.
This agreement is a testament to leadership that prioritizes national stability, social justice, and sustainable development.
The union says that while progress has been made on lecturers' welfare, unresolved issues remain over the alleged misuse of funds by some vice-chancellors set aside for proper university management.
Our universities are now run by consultants. It has become a clean way of cleansing the funds that the union has fought for. When we fight and we get funds to the universities, we are not satisfied with how vice-chancellors manage the funds.
Part of the agreement saw the federal government approving a 40% review of academic allowances and also introducing a new welfare package for senior academics in the university system.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has created another category of allowances called professorial cadre allowance. This allowance is specifically designed to support research coordination, academic documentation, correspondence, and administrative efficiency.
Both parties say effective implementation of the agreement will be key to improving lecturers' welfare and preventing future disruptions in Nigeria's public universities.
I'm now joined by Professor Joseph Usien, a lecturer at the University of Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. Thank you very much for giving us your time. I mean, even the ASUU president was skeptical, while he was very optimistic and, happy with this historic agreement. his pessimistic side was worried about fulfillment. Do you share that concern, even in the midst of this celebration?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having me on the program. I joined colleagues in and other Nigerians in showing some happiness over the development. However, ASUU members remain somewhat skeptical and pessimistic, not really pessimistic, because from experience, we have had situations where it takes a very long while to get agreements negotiated and then signed, and then another strike probably for implementation to take place. We are happy that this time, at least the agreement has been formally endorsed by both parties, but our fear remains, will the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu carry on what it has, the genes it has broken to the point of implementation? That is our fear. If that is done, then we will know that yes, this is a departure, especially if it's done without a strike to trigger them to do the needful. The implementation is the last thing, and that is what matters the most to us.
What more can you tell us about the agreement? Are you satisfied that all areas of concern between ASUU and the government and the university welfare was adequately covered?
Yeah, well, it's difficult to answer yes or no, because if I say we are not satisfied, then we might be showing inadequate appreciation to a government that has at least done better than others. But if I say that we are satisfied, and then you look at the package and you look at the where we should have been if this agreement had been reviewed when it was due 2012, and then we wouldn't have been where we are. So yes, we are happy that at least this government has taken the agreement to this point, and we'll be quite happy if it's implemented, but we will be happier if he keeps to the terms of the agreement with regard to review 3 years later, which would enable us to still advance the welfare package from where it is at the moment. The only thing is we have, as someone who teaches English, we have adjectives, good, better, best. So this is not yet best, but it is better than where we were.
Okay, let's talk about university autonomy, because that was a sticking point for the ASUU president. He said, in principle, it is acknowledged that the universities should have autonomy, but that is not the case in Nigeria. Is there any information on that agreement that uplifts the spirit that there will be some autonomy for universities in decision-making to drive education forward?
Yeah, well, university autonomy is a global best practice. Anywhere in the world, the university system ensures freedom. All manner of ideas are accommodated. But in Nigeria, it hasn't really been the case. We have had overarching influences in terms of employment, sometimes even in terms of admission. Let me give you an example. When I was an undergraduate, in those days, in the 70s up to the early 80s, my vice chancellor then had a request for admission from someone high in government, and he told the person, I'm sorry, your candidate is not qualified. Let the candidate try again next year. And it ended. But these days, sometimes you have the situation in which we talk of admission, you have Senate, National Assembly list, ministers list, even in recruitment. That does not augur well for any Nigerian, any university system. We want a situation where if we have our first class, second class, upper graduates, we should be able to say this one should remain. But sometimes you have a situation in which people stay in Abuja or anywhere else and they decide for you who to recruit, whom to admit. Those are not, they don't fall within the best practices, global best practices of university education. Then, of course, when you talk of autonomy, it comes down to the vice chancellors, and sometimes some of them do not even uphold the very principles of autonomy. So that is something that we have accepted in principle, government has kindly accepted, but then we must fight to ensure that it is practicalized, that it is actually made functional. Not because others want anything, but just in the interest of the university system, in the interest of the nation, so that we align with what goes on anywhere else in the world. That is what we are talking about.
All right, quickly, I want you to, in 40 seconds, if you can, research funding got some good mention, and there seemed to be some, positive feedback, especially with the bill that's to be forwarded to the National Assembly on National Research Council to ensure that is done. I mean, research funding is key to further development of our education system. So what are your thoughts about the, what would be the appropriate word now, this coming to fruition in real term, that this funding will get to the universities and the work will be done to further education?
That is a very right step in the right direction, provided that the process of releasing of the funds and the management is okay. I can tell you, well, I've had the opportunity of doing academic work in so many parts of the world elsewhere, and nothing supports a nation, not just the university system, better than the outcomes of researches. And I can tell you that Nigerian scholars are among the best in the world. And you see this when they leave here to anywhere else in the world where research facilities are available. We keep getting reports of their bringing out groundbreaking research outcomes. If this goes through and federal government is truly committed and makes money available, I can assure you that this is going to be a revolutionary step in the promotion of the progress of this country, because research basis of development anywhere else in the world.
This was really hard fought by ASUU. We do hope that this time the government will pull through. Prof, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and have a wonderful evening. You
too, sir. Coming up, U.S. announces temporary pause on immigrant visa processing for Nigeria and 74 other countries. We'll tell you more when we return. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Federal government and ASUU seal historic deal to end decades of disruption in university education. Nigeria hires U.S. lobbying firm a $9 million deal to explain its actions on Christian genocide to Washington. And Uganda faces mounting calls to end internet blackout as Amnesty International alleges massive repression ahead elections. Talking about elections, as preparations continue towards the FCT Council polls in Abuja, attention is turning to the residents who are already voicing their expectations go beyond campaign posters and promises. in Abuja Municipal Area Council. The voters are sharing what they want to see. I'm now joined by our correspondent, Sumaya Abubakar, who has been on the field talking to residents of the FCT. Sumaya, good to have you here. Speak to us on the level of preparedness of the electoral umpire from what you saw earlier in the day.
Good evening, Felicity. Yes, in terms of the electoral umpire, there seem not to be a lot, being said out there now especially from the INEC here. What they're saying is that they are making sure they're putting everything in place so that all electoral materials get to, of course, every polling unit in order for them to, give the citizens the right and the floor to cast their votes without any hindrance and issue. Also, we know that they are also collaborating with the FCT Police Command, talking about the security forces, not just only police, but then other arms of, the security agencies in order to make sure that the resident feels secure while voting, because from past election, which was one of the also concern of the AMAC residents, which I am concentrating on, who I was able to talk to, said they were scared considering the past, election that happened in the FCT. There was a bit of violence and ballot snatching. So that is also another, concentration of a very deep, in-depth concentration in terms of the electoral umpire. So it's still going on. They are doing their own part. The residents on this side are also doing their own part. But I have to point out that one of the things that I did notice, Felicity, while on the field today, because we were able to move around AMAC. Now, AMAC is a very large council. That's the Abuja Municipal Area Council. It's really big. So we were able to move from Day down to the Sokoro axis. We also reached the Gwarimpa axis there, and then we got to the Wuse. And the major thing that I would say is that while some of the residents there are aware that there's going to be election come February 21st, a majority of them are not even aware. So sensitization, I would say, in terms of, the electoral umpire, it's not really been done as it should be. So that would be, the gaps that so far us being on the ground have shown us.
What are the predominant sentiments being expressed by residents in terms of expectations for the polls?
I mean, there seem to be a lot of expectations, of course, as it should be. But then from the people of Dede, I just have to represent what the people are saying. There is major complaint about education. Now, they say that, of course, because they are Nigerians, they are not going to give up on hope. But they pointed out that this is a major complaint that they have been, calling on the attention of any or every existing AMAC chairman to look at them in terms of education, to say that the primary and secondary school is nothing to write home about. Majority of, their demands has to rely on private schools. And then when you go to that outskirts, because Dede is an outskirts community in the AMAC council, the concern is that majority of them cannot afford the private schools. So education for them is failing. They're complaining about the structures, the teaching quality, of course, saying that even people could go inside the school premises to defecate, which means that it's not in good shape. They was also complain when you come down to, they complain about electricity and water, but then that's a concern about electricity and water is replicated in, echoed in every other places that we visited today. Gwarimpa people also complained. For them, they said road is good. So far, at least some major improvement has been there, but then in terms of electricity and water, they still face the same issue. And I'm back today. I have to point out that they complained about road. It was just recently a road was done just leading to the entrance of, Dede, but apart from that, nothing is done. So yeah, basically that echoed in other places. Electricity, water, so basic amenities, I would say, is missing in the AMAC Council. So they're expecting that as much as they would make efforts to come out and vote, they also need the people to make sure that the person coming in make promises and deliver on that promise.
Well, that's the hope of most Nigerians, that our elected officials act on the promises they made during campaigns. Sumaya, thank you for the coverage. The U.S. State Department has announced a temporary pause on immigrant visa processing for citizens of 75 countries starting January 21, 2026. This move affects nations across Africa, Asia, Europe, and South America, including Nigeria, Somalia, Russia, Iran, Afghanistan, Brazil, Iraq, Egypt, Thailand, and Yemen. Officials say the pause will continue indefinitely while consular officers review screening and vetting procedures, particularly under the long-standing public charge rule. That rule allows visa officers to refuse entry to applicants who are deemed likely to become dependent on U.S. public benefits. Under the review, factors like health, financial resources, age, and English skills may be used more strictly when assessing applicants. Exceptions may be allowed, but are expected to be very limited. Nigeria has reportedly engaged the services of a Washington-based lobbying firm, DCI Group, in a $9 million contract aimed at communicating its efforts to protect Christians in Nigeria to the United States government. According to the report, the amount appears to be a record for African lobbying in the U.S. Capitol, citing documents filed with the U.S. Department of Justice by Aster Legal, a Kaduna-based law firm acting on behalf of the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu. The agreement signed on December the 17th, 2025, between Oyetunji Olalekon Teslim, managing partner at Aster Legal, and Justin Peterson, managing member of DCI Group, authorizes the U.S. firm to assist the Nigerian government in communicating its actions to protect Nigerian Christian communities and maintaining U.S. support in countering West African jihadist groups and other destabilizing elements. I'm now joined by a global affairs analyst, Ejike Opa, for this conversation. Thank you, as always, for obliging us. The contract is reportedly one of the most expensive lobbying deals ever signed by an African government. Your thoughts on that first?
Hey, thank you for having me, and Happy New Year. I think this is the first time talking with you in 2026. It's not the largest. It's not the largest. When Kabila was there as president of DRC, they engaged a law firm, that was formerly started with the former Senator Bob Dole, and they paid a lot of money so that, U.S. will have a favorable look or outlook on DRC. And South Africa has done some things. But, the point is that Nigeria is spending this money. Well, maybe this is Nigeria's first time doing it, but it's obviously not the biggest in the case of an African country.
Okay, that clarification was very important, because that seemed to be one of the predominant narratives being put out online. Let's take on what critics may say in this instance. We have present security, economic, and social needs here at home. Why is the federal government of Nigeria prioritizing foreign lobbying instead of strengthening internal systems to protect all Nigerians? What, in your thinking, guided this prioritization?
I think it's a reactionary measure that Tinubu is jumping, which to me is medicine after death. Since he became president, Nigeria doesn't have an ambassador in U.S. and is that 2 years and more than 6 months. And then, of course, until the airstrike in Nigeria, and then, everybody now started running around to see what it is you want to do. Lobbying in America is very effective if you already have, a country diplomatic group that have built a relationship, have against American policymakers and politicians and public figures, so that when you now come in for specific interest, through the lobbying thing, they say, oh, by the way, we're not about you. But if it's just after the fact, a reaction reactionary measure. I don't think it's going to get Nigeria any mileage based on the money being spent. It's not a whole lot of money, but in terms of Nigerian national budget, you could see how that is a huge percentage. If Mexico and Canada, spend hundreds of millions of dollars every year just to lobby America, and it's just a next door country. So it's not big, but if Nigeria really want to polish and launder their own public image, internationally, they have to have a diplomatic core or people that are effective in building relationship, and not when things happen, they start behaving like chicken without head, chicken whose head is cut off. This is all falls back to Tinubu and his foreign ministry and foreign team and whoever is advising. But it's just a wait and see thing.
Go ahead.
It's just a wait and see thing to see whether this, this $9 million or whatever the amount is going to get him a multiple, benefit of 10 times or 100 times.
What I'm about to ask you, I'm sorry to interject. I'm told we only have a few minutes. This seems like a tired question, actually, but it's imperative we keep asking, and that is about accountability, because this fund that is going to be expended is public funds. Do you think there is any kind of mechanism that will that the government will use to account for the spending for the purpose, and what would be the yardstick for measuring success for a contract that is supposed to be renewed after 6 months?
Well, good question. But the thing is whomever is the president of Nigeria runs Nigeria as a petty cash corporation. They can dig their hand in the purse and do whatever it is. They pull the purse strings, and then, so if they want $1, they get it. If they want a kobo, they get it. The National Assembly is not an effective, check and balances. The Ways and Means Committee is not doing that. So the question that needs to be had is this money already appropriated in the foreign ministry and now there's been deployed, or is this one of those ad hoc reaction? Okay, let's go spend the money because nobody's going to question the president, for spending that kind of money. Then the question again is, since the money has been spent and it's a 6 months, we'll see what happens in 6 months, whether, you need to be renewed or say, hey, we're not getting the mileage for spending money. Anytime you spend public money, that's what they call cost benefit analysis. If in the case of investment, it becomes return on and return off. Either way, anytime you let money go and outlay, you're going to want something in return to justify that you spent that money. And so let's wait and see. But the Nigerian, National Assembly at the federal level have to be a little more pushing back on what any president is going to do. Tinubu hasn't appointed an ambassador since he's been in office. He hasn't appointed a foreign, petroleum minister. The assembly should say, no, if you're not going to appoint these people, we're not going to confirm any other person you want. He's been making some local appointments, but hasn't really appointed the substantial things that can get Nigeria mileage. So again, this is, you can spend money anytime you want, but what are you getting in return?
Indeed. Thank you very much, Ejike, for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Tonight returns after this break. Thank you for being here with us. Nigeria's Minister of Youth Development, Ayodele Olawande, has expressed the determination of the ministry and other key stakeholders to ensure that the National Youth Service Corps is improved upon in a bid to achieve its mandate for national development. News Center's Chizoba Anyowe completes this report.
The NYSC dance troupe in Jos welcomed stakeholders to the annual event being hosted on the plateau. These participants are here to brainstorm on major ways of ensuring the objectives of the NYSC is not only improved upon, but achieved for greater impact. Nigeria's Minister of Youth Development joined the meeting virtually for his remarks.
So every project must be in line with the scheme. Let the conference provide a valuable opportunity for managers of the schemes. Let's review operations, share experience, introduce fresh ideas like the DG that will improve the impact of the National Youth Service Corps.
The Director General of the NYSC says he remains optimistic that the event will help the scheme achieve its key mandate.
Our internal review of the past year has clearly shown that we must embrace change and continuous growth. Management is therefore dedicated to reforms that strengthen systems, enhance service delivery, and align our operations with current realities.
The Governor of Plateau State, who was represented by his deputy, assured that the Plateau State government will continue to support the scheme.
As part of my administration's commitment to youth development and in recognition to the strategic role of the NYSC plays in our collective drive towards unity and socio-economic development, I am aware that the NYSC is committed to making strategic strides in the area of agriculture, combating hunger and ensuring food sufficiency. To this end, I have directed the addition of several hectares of land to the NYSC camp for agricultural purposes.
As the event ends, expectations are high that all stakeholders will collaborate and work towards improving the scheme. In Plateau State, for News Central, Chizoba Aniori.
Thank you, Chizoba. The Independent newspaper has announced plans to mark its 25th anniversary with an award ceremony celebrating humanitarian service and excellence. The announcement was made at a press conference here in Lagos. News Central's correspondent Emmanuel Olubobokun reports.
Ensure credibility, fairness, and transparency.
25 years of journalism, public interest reporting, and social advocacy formed the focus of discussions as the Independent newspaper unveiled activities to mark its silver jubilee. Chairman of the awards committee, Yemi Adebisi, disclosed that the anniversary award ceremony is scheduled for April the 18th, 2026.
Nominations will be assessed by the Board of Editors and independent jury panel and respected Nigerians to ensure credibility, fairness, and transparency. Nomination will open by January 15, 2026, which is tomorrow. Nomination closes on February 12, 2026. The shortlist announcement will take place on March 31, 2026. Public voting will hold on March 31 and ends on April 14, 2026. The Professor's Award Ceremony will hold on Saturday, April 18, 2026.
He explained that the event will feature 25 award categories representing each year of the newspaper's commitment to humanitarian service. In response to questions on the structure, selection process, and overall modalities of the award ceremony, the organizers assured that clear guidelines and credible procedures would guide nominations and the final selection of award recipients.
We want to try as much as possible to be very transparent. So all the 25 categories that we are going to be giving out will be decided by, it's going to be a marriage between the Board of Editors, the jury, and of course, respectable Nigerians to decide. For instance, I mentioned Man of the Year, I mentioned Lifetime Achievement Award, I mentioned Financial Sector Regulator of the Year, and so on and so forth.
We are also using the criteria from the Daily Independent team. So we split it across 40% to the public, 30% to the jury, the 11-man jury, and 30% to the Daily Independent in-house team. All of these will come together, will compile together to finalize the winners of the award.
The Independent newspaper says the anniversary celebration will also serve as a moment to reflect on its journey so far and renew its commitment to responsible journalism. In Lagos, for News Central, Emmanuel Olubobokun.
President Bola Tinubu has mourned the death of veteran journalist and Newswatch magazine co-founder Yakubu Mohammed, who died on Monday night. The president described Mohammed as a fearless journalist whose career spanned over 50 years and was dedicated to nation building. Mohammed co-founded Newswatch in 1984 alongside Dele Giwa, Dan Agbase and Ray Ekpu, helping to shape investigative journalism during Nigeria's military era. President Tinubu also sympathized with the family, the people of Kogi State, and the media organizations where the late journalist served. Let's go to East Africa. Uganda is facing mounting calls to lift a nationwide internet blackout before a contentious election, with the United Nations saying the government-imposed restrictions are deeply worrying. In a social media post on Wednesday, the UN Human Rights Office stressed that open access to communication and information is key to free and genuine elections. The call comes a day after a Ugandan government regulatory body instructed mobile network operators to block public internet access starting on Tuesday evening as the East African country readied for a January 15 general election. Internet monitor NetBlocks said in its latest update on Wednesday that Uganda was in the midst of a widespread internet shutdown. Demonstrators have gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Copenhagen as tensions rise over reported U.S. interest in annexing Greenland. The protest comes as top diplomats from Denmark and Greenland held high-level talks at the White House to clarify Washington's intentions regarding the Arctic territory. Protesters carried placards and chanted slogans rejecting any idea of Greenland becoming part of the United States. Greenland, an autonomous territory under the Kingdom of Denmark, has repeatedly stated that its future should be decided only by its people. Business, sports and entertainment news is next when we return.
Welcome back, and it's time for business. The World Bank has projected Nigeria's economy to grow by 4.4% in both 2026 and 2027, reaffirming optimism about the country's medium-term prospects. In its January 2026 Global Economic Prospects Report, the bank upgraded Nigeria's 2026 growth estimate from 3.7%, citing improving macroeconomic conditions. It said the expansion, Nigeria's fastest in over a decade, will be driven by service sector growth, recovering agriculture, and modest gains in non-oil industries, supported by ongoing reforms and prudent monetary policy. Nigeria's National Identity Management Commission and 9 other federal ministries, departments, and agencies have earmarked about 24 billion naira for software projects in the 2026 appropriation bill. NYSC leads with an allocation of 7.58 billion naira, followed by the Ministry of Education at 7.55 billion naira. Other beneficiaries include agencies in mining, cybersecurity, health, finance, and immigration. The sizable allocation has renewed concerns among regulators and industry stakeholders over waste, weak oversight, and recurring failures of government IT projects. Let's move on to the stock market report. The Nigerian exchange closed higher today with an all-share index of up to 0.56%, while it closed off at 166,771.95 basis points, and the market capped out at 106.78 trillion naira. Now, trading was active but clearly selective as investors rotated across sectors. Oil and gas stocks led the rally with strong gains. Insurance followed, while banking and industrial counters were largely flat and consumer goods dipped. At the stock level, Academy Press and NCR Nigeria topped the gainers with near 10% advances, while May and Baker and Coronation Insurance, WAPIC, led the laggers, signaling a market that remains bullish but increasingly disciplined. Now let's take a look at the numbers. All right, so banking closed off in the green at 0.05%. Insurance was also up by 0.78%. Oil and gas, the shining star in this lineup, closed off at a strong 6.26%. Consumer goods is the only one that we have in the red, and that closed off at 0.2%. Industrial goods was a very minimal increase, and it was up by 0.01%. So overall, the session reinforces a market still leaning bullish, but no longer indiscriminate. Sector rotation, selective buying, and sharp stock-specific moves suggest investors are positioning with care rather than chasing momentum. The rally could still run if buying stays widespread, but stretched valuation suggests a brief pullback may be on the horizon. Now that's a wrap on Business Tonight. My name is Chamun Dabeng.
Hello and welcome to sports. Now, Senegal booked their place in the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations final with a deserved 1-0 victory over Egypt in Wednesday's semi-final in Tangier. Sadio Mane proved decisive once again, scoring the winning goal in the 78th minute to cap a dominant display by the former champions. Senegal controlled possession throughout and restricted Egypt to just one shot on target in the 94th minute of the encounter. The result sends Senegal into Sunday's final, where they will face either the hosts Morocco or Nigeria. Mane's strike further cemented his AFCON legacy, making him the first player since 2010 to reach 20 goal contributions in the tournament. Meanwhile, Senegal will face the winner of the second semi-final between Nigeria Super Eagles and host Atlas Lions. It's currently going on, and it's halftime right now, and the match is goalless. And Burkina Faso have sacked coach Brahma Traore and his coaching staff after their last 16 exits at the Africa Cup of Nations. The country's football federation said the decision was taken following results deemed to fall far short of the objectives set for the national team before the finals in Morocco. The Stallions had been targeting a place in the semi-finals but lost 3-0 to defending champions Ivory Coast in the first knockout round. Meanwhile, 10 members of the 19-strong executive committee of Mali's Football Federation have resigned, plunging the administration of the game in the West African country into a leadership crisis. The resignations came after the Eagles reached the quarterfinals in North Africa, matching their performance in Ivory Coast 2 years ago. However, Femafoot has moved to deny rumors that coach Tom Saintfit's job is also at risk. And here in Nigeria, the second stanza of the Nigeria Premier Football League resumed today as 9 matches were played across the country. Midfielder Hadi Haruna scored the only goal in Abeokuta as defending champions Remo Stars claimed all 3 points at home against Ikorodu City. In Ibadan, Shooting Stars produced the standard performance of the round as they hammered 2-time African champions Enyimba by 3-0 at the Lekan Salami Stadium. In other results all across Nigeria, El Academy Warriors defeated Bayelsa United by 1-0. Barao defeated Niger Tornadoes 2-1. Abia Warriors and Plateau United played at a 1-1 draw. Kwara United lost at home to Bedell Insurance by 1 lone goal. Nasara United also lost at home to Kano Pillars by a lone goal. Rangers and Rivers United played out a goalless draw, while Wiki Tourists lost at home as well to Warri Wolves by a lone goal. And that's what we have on sports tonight. And was up next with entertainment.
And let's dive right into entertainment, as Nigeria's film and industry was busy throughout 2025 with the National Film and Video Census Board approving and classifying 1,185 films between January and December, up from the 1,088 in 2024. Now, according to the board, the increase reflects steady growth and high activity among filmmakers nationwide. They said English language films led the list, followed by Yoruba and Igbo productions, while Hausa and other indigenous languages appeared, less frequently, though languages like Nupe, Berom, and Agbagi also saw more representation later in the year. Now, most approved films were rated 15 and 18, showing a strong focus on mature audiences, while family-friendly content remained limited. The board says it's now pushing for more indigenous languages and child-friendly productions. Well, I would say that increase would definitely show that our Nollywood industry, people are really getting to work. Now let's move on to Hollywood, as Hollywood star Zoe Saldana has reacted to becoming the highest grossing film actor in history following the success of the Avatar: Fire and Ash. In an emotional response, Saldana described the milestone as humbling, expressing gratitude to audiences, filmmakers, and collaborators who have supported her career thus far. Her box office dominance is driven by her roles in major franchises, including Avatar, Avengers, and Guardians of the Galaxy, cementing her status as one of the most commercially successful actors in global cinema history. That's a huge one for Zoe Saldana, and yes, a big congratulations if I should say so myself. But that's all we have on entertainment tonight.
Thank you very much for staying with us. That's all the news we have for you at this hour. But before we go, a quick recap of our top stories. Federal government and ASUU have sealed historic deal to end decades of disruptions in university education. Nigeria hires U.S. lobbying firm in $9 million deal to explain actions on Christian genocide to Washington. And Uganda is facing mounting calls to end internet blackout as Amnesty International alleges massive repression ahead elections. Send us your eyewitness report. Use the number being displayed now on your screen. You can do that as well by following us on all social media platforms at News Central TV. We're live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Good night.